Let's start with the literals of the question at hand. Who is Mr. Blue Eyes in hit 2020 role-playing game Cyberpunk 2077 starring Keanu Reaves by cdprojekt Red? Spoilers, by the way. You can meet Mr. Blue Eyes in the afterlife in a couple of the endings, but if you're watching this, you probably already knew that. He offers V a job, which is supposed to give them the resources they need to stay alive a little bit longer. All V needs to do is commit a possibly impossible heist, stealing data on the clientele of a space casino. This is my favorite ending shot of V. I'm not sure if the gas coming out of the suit means they're suffocating. And also the visual of someone glaring at a space station with just a pistol is absolutely hilarious to me. Outside of these direct interactions with Mr. Blue Eyes, the terminal on the ship has emails from V's Ripper Doc, Victor Vector. Victor's concerned that this shadowy figure is a massive unknown in Night City, and he reasons that Mr. Blue Eyes is either some nobody running some sort of scam on V, or Mr. Blue Eyes is so massive he can't be perceived by anyone even on V's level. Which is quite the concern, given that by now V is the monarch of the afterlife, which we've been led to believe is where the best independent contractors go for work. V just took down Arasaka fucking Tower, destroyed goddamn Mikoshi. What could possibly be higher up the food chain than 1v1ing Atom Smasher? I'm gonna take a sharp turn here, but I promise we'll get back to that. Gary the Prophet is one of my favorite characters in this game. Something about seeing him as I went about my quests was just comforting. Dude really wants to make a difference, in spite of the game constantly telling you that you can't. He stands on the street, trying to wake Night City up, get them to see that there are vampires controlling corporations, werewolves wandering the wastes, and reptiles pulling politicians' strings. I had more eddies than I knew what to do with, so whenever I could, I funded his work. Wake Night City up. After V listens to Gary's preaching a few times, some Aldecaldos will hear him calling nomads werewolves, and they'll take offense to it. V can get them off his back, but they have to suggest that he isn't to be taken seriously to do it. Gary doesn't believe V believes his preaching anymore, and he's hurt. He says that it's all true, that he can hear Alpha Centauri's communications through a shard in his head. When he gives V coordinates to a place where techno-necromancers are supposed to be meeting with vampires, V and Johnny have the opportunity to stake it out and see what they can find. Johnny, despite not taking any particular interest in Gary's ramblings before, seems pretty excited about the stakeout. A conspiracy? Maybe involving some secret corpo scheme? Sign him up. At the docks, some Maelstrom gangers meet up with some corpos, speaking in a code mentioning a wolf mother and the moon. If he can get through some Maelstrom mooks, they can pick up a USB stick from one of the corpo agents and take it back to Gary to get analyzed. You think, anyways. When V gets back to Gary's street corner, he's gone. He's been disappeared by some shadowy figures in black suits with piercing blue eyes. You still have the USB stick from the meeting, but it doesn't send you anywhere. The only person in Night City who could have given you a lead is gone. Reflecting on the quest, Johnny posits that aliens are a good way for people to distract themselves from the personal interests and corporations that really run the world. All of this to say, there's a kernel of truth to what Gary the Prophet says. Sometimes more. As I was thinking of life-stealing shadowy figures controlling Night City from places unknown, I was reminded of a quest I'd completed much earlier in my run, Dream On. A politician named Jefferson Peralez, who you've met before, is running for mayor of NC. He hires V to investigate a break-in because he trusts them more than the police. After some detective work, which Johnny isn't interested in, V finds that Peralez and his wife are being brainwashed by the same corporation they've hired as security. Some of the agents from the security agency are outside in a van, and when they're in danger of being found by the best merc in Night City, they drive away. As soon as the surveillance van starts moving, Johnny jumps on V to get after them. Corpos again, this time actively up to something clearly nefarious. The ensuing car chase leads the protagonist pair to Maelstrom. The van's been surrounded and protected by Maelstrom gangers. If V can break through their physical defenses, and then some technical ones, they'll find that Peralez isn't the only one being controlled. There's data on half a dozen people of interest, and it's being erased right before V's eyes. This is bigger than any one person. Maybe even bigger than Adam Smasher and Arasaka. Johnny and V have no idea what this is, and it's definitely not some nobody. V has the option, a little later, to tell Peralez that his brain is being washed, and he has a hard time with it. He leaves V and Johnny to go process what he's learned. Before that, though, between the van and the politician, V receives a phone call from a mysterious force, which somehow knows about Johnny. The garbled voice on the other end of the unknown number tells V not to interfere, because this is beyond them. Then the call ends and the number is erased. After talking to Peralez, Johnny and V debrief on the mission. This time, Johnny says that he doesn't think humans are the ones washing the brains, and V teases that that must mean aliens, drawing a narrative parallel between the two seemingly unrelated quests. Gary the Prophet says that you can recognize the agents of Alpha Centauri by their cold blue eyes. He's abducted by men in black suits with blue eyes. Our shadowy figure, with his piercing blue eyes, appears in the afterlife as an unknown, and Victor Vector correctly points out that you can only be unknown in this city by being a nobody or by being so far above everyone else as to be unobservable. Night City's mayor is being controlled by a totally unknown force. I believe Mr. Blue Eyes is an agent of Alpha Centauri, and he's offered to turn V into a vampire. He's giving her an opportunity to extend her life at the expense of someone else's. But wait, that's really just the what happens. That's what the game says. And if you want more of that, I would definitely recommend this video by the Neon Arcade, which covers even some stuff that I didn't notice in the game, like how Mr. Blue Eyes appears during your last conversation with Peralez off in the distance, or how Sandra Dorset ties into all of this. I also desperately want to know why. Why did CD Projekt Red include Mr. Blue Eyes in all these seemingly unrelated quests? What does it mean for the story that this shadowy entity exists? What is the message we're supposed to take from all of these details? A good starting point is to look at V and Johnny's post-quest debriefings. These conversations allow for some personalization with Johnny, which he desperately needs if we're supposed to sympathize with him. Also, he's Keanu Reaves. I love any chance to talk with him. These conversations also allow CDPR to talk a little bit more directly about what the missions are supposed to mean in a way that I also definitely talk to my friends when we do something exciting, like go to the grocery store. Starting at the end, Johnny isn't there when V meets Mr. Blue Eyes in the afterlife. V hasn't gotten to know many fixers or many of the afterlife's regulars throughout the game, so the first time I saw him, I thought he was just some dude with some money to blow. It's only V's email with Victor on the spaceship where it's noted as strange that V hasn't heard of him. The city is so massive that even becoming the biggest fish in the pond hasn't given V any control. In this ending, they're alive, but only mostly. Judy can't take the strain of V being in constant danger, and V is willing to take any job, even one as sketchy and dangerous as this one, if it means living just a little longer. They're dying, and Night City only cares as far as it can exploit them. V's desperate, and Mr. Blue Eyes, the worst version of the system, is perfectly willing to take advantage of that. After Mr. Blue Eyes disappears Gary, the Prophet's quest is over. The data shard stays in V's pocket, but even deciphering it doesn't yield enough information to go on. No quest points you towards the blue-eyed men in the black suits who abducted him. He's just gone, and that's just that. Gary's loss is sad for me because I like him. I might even call him a friend, but to Night City, he's hardly even lost. Replaced instead by one of his followers. The city won't mourn him, but the people who cared about him might. Gary wanted desperately to wake Night City up, just like Johnny wanted to shake the city awake 50 years ago. And just like the new Arasaka Tower stands, Chinatown's new preacher goes just as ignored as the last. Johnny reflects on how even the fantastical is just corpo bullshit, pulling the strings and making schemes. V says that open endings suck. After learning that someone has been brainwashing him, Mayor-to-be Peralez is a wreck. Peralez is framed as good a person as a politician can be. He has rivals, sure, but he's concerned about their deaths, even in a world where death is a constant. We're told that he's basically uncorruptible. He's never taken a bribe. Peralez works with SSI security specifically because they're a small-time security agency. Arasaka or Militech have bigger guns to protect him, but on some level he would always owe them his life, and he's not willing to compromise his integrity like that. Even the most powerful, most innocent person in Night City can be taken advantage of. Specifically because he refuses to be beholden to it. And when he learns the truth, it breaks him. Peralez falls apart, becoming endlessly suspicious of everyone around him. Gary's story is sad, but at least the people who care about him can remember him fondly. Peralez pushes V and even his own wife away, not knowing who he can trust, unable to trust even his own memories. The city and the system it was built on have taken everything from him, including himself. Mr. Blue Eyes is the worst version of the system. He's not the loud and proud Arasaka and Militech. He's not the sexed up posters and adverts. He is behind every politician, behind every policy that made Night City the way that it is. He's the police that even the mayor doesn't trust, and he is the secret security agency that you hire to protect you from those police. He's the policies that allow Arasaka to exert itself over everything that's not him. Gary calls Mr. Blue Eyes a reptile, but I think the vampire is the more apt comparison. He's powerful, and he's cold, and he's distant and separate from the world. He's unknowable, and he's sucking the life out of Night City and its inhabitants. If you meet him, the best you can hope for is that he turns you into something more like him. That seems to be what CD Projekt Red is saying, anyway.